Hi, I'm Jen. Welcome to my channel, Christian Fire Poppy. I was actually wanting to get this out sooner, but I'm a little bit tired. I've had a lot going on this weekend, but a lot of the things have been good. Um, we had Elder Christofferson come and visit, and so being able to have an apostle come and visit the area was super special. And I know it was a little bit different from experiences that I've had in the past. Um, just in the sense that the church is so big now that it's really hard to they really kind of whisk them in there. There's a lot of security, and then they kind of whisk the apostles out. So um, I it was really cool that at the leadership training, it was basically the size of small ward as far as how many people were in there. So it didn't extend into the cultural center of the stake center. It was basically just the number of people that could fit in the chapel. And just being in the presence of an apostle, honestly, even just hearing that he was coming, it has really brought this special spirit. And I'm going to be careful about what I share because they don't want us to, dictate specific things that they say. But I'll just say that they talked a lot about the rising generation, and there is such a focus on the youth right now. So even when he was talking to all of the leaders, not just the youth leaders, he was talking a lot about the rising generation. And then there was a special youth fireside, and honestly, that was for me that was the best part to see thousands at that point. It was not just the chapel, but the entire stakes. The cultural hall was filled to the brim, and I was sitting in the very, very back row, trying to give the youth those closer seats. But um, it was just amazing to hear the youth sing and to hear and to see all those youth there ready and excited to hear from an apostle. Um, so it was kind of interesting because he actually gave us two homework assignments at the leadership training. And I wanted to share that because that it might be useful if you want to do this homework assignment as well. I think it will be very useful. Um, Elder Christofferson talked a lot about the plan of salvation, and he actually told us to write a whole page. I haven't been given a written essay assignment for a long time, but he said to go home and write a whole page about the plan of salvation. So that was a huge deal. And he also gave us an assignment to pray about something that we can do, that we can add or subtract from what we're doing in our lives. And it was kind of cool because I feel like I was already getting some inklings of what I needed to do right before he came. And it was just solidified with that charge. But I wanted to share it with you guys because oftentimes some of my greatest ideas and the greatest miracles and things that have happened in my life have to do with other people giving me ideas. And sometimes those ideas just come randomly online. You never know when a YouTube video will just spark a little bit of uh, effort on your end and get you excited and inspire you to do something different. So I'm hoping to inspire you guys with this idea. So let me tell you about my experience. It kind of as Elder Christofferson was coming, I ran across this article. And actually, first, I just want to remind you guys how this last week when it was really special, we had the 177th dedication of a temple. It was on May 7th on a Sunday. That's kind of unusual, I think, to be on a Sunday. And it was the Richmond, Virginia temple. And I didn't realize this until I ran across this article that there's something historic going on in Israel right now and with Christians all around the world. And so let me just show you what I ran into as I was looking. It was on Israel 365, and this is what I saw. Um, Let me go to, I took a screenshot to share with you guys. Okay, so this is what it said on Israel 365. It says, for 3 weeks, millions of Christians around the world will be joining in an unprecedented event, praying and fasting for Israel. From May 7th, so beginning on May 7th to May 28th, a collaboration of several thousand ministries is calling on 1 million Christians to participate in a global solemn assembly for at least 1 hour a day. Some participants will fast in various ways. The initiative is based on a verse in Isaiah. So they're calling this the Isaiah 62 fast, and it's all about bringing people's minds to see how important Israel is as far as fulfilling prophecy and as far as the last days, that we need to be of one heart and one mind. And kind of this, to me, it sounded like a real Zion type mindset to have towards our fellow brothers and sisters who are Jewish and who are in Israel. And this is the scripture. Uh, it says, "Upon your walls, O Jerusalem, I have set watchmen who shall never be silent by day or by night. O you, Hashem's remembrance, take no rest." Isaiah 62:6. And then they go on to elaborate um, that this 21-day fast is an Esther moment, so in Esther 4:14, that will be a significant down payment for the final ultimate global Esther moment when millions of believers will engage in prayer, speak out boldly for God's purposes for Israel, and stand with Israel as anti-Semitism increases. This fast is also important for today as Israel faces several very significant conflicts. And there's so much going on in Israel right now with Iran enriching, and you just don't know when either Israel will feel like they're forced to make a move against Iran or Iran will make a move. And there's a lot of tension and a lot of, um, conflict within Israel itself. It says, as per the verse's description of constant watchfulness, let's see, the International House of Prayer in Kansas City. So I kind of thought this was cool too, that this is stemming from Kansas City, Missouri, that center place, that it's coming from there. And apparently they have already had over 1 million Christians commit to do this. And their goal is to actually have 100 million to be praying and fasting, specifically praying on actually Pentecost. So they're starting it on May 7th, and it's a 21-day challenge to pray and to fast for 21 days that ends on Pentecost of this year. And when I saw this, I just thought that was kind of cool because I love looking forward to holidays. I like using those holy days and holidays to set goals for myself. But because this didn't come from our church, I thought, oh, that's cool of them to do. Went along my merry way. And I didn't think too much of it until I I actually was listening to the Christian Homestead, and I watched his video, and he was talking about Martha Knowles, who had recorded the words of the prophet, and written down what the prophet Joseph Smith had said, and that just reminded me that it brought me back to when President Nelson came in 2018, and I had like vigorously tried to write down everything he was saying, and I just thought to myself, I should go back and review what it was that he said then. And right as I was thinking that, just kind of cleaning up in my closet, and I found it's my Mount Sinai necklace that so my grandma passed away recently, just a few months ago, and she left me a couple necklaces that she had climbed to the top of Mount Sinai and picked up these stones, and then she had them smoothed and made into necklaces. And there were two of them. And anyways, one of them had kind of broken and gotten lost. And see, now that I'm touching it, I need to fix it. But I found it, and I thought, oh, what unusual timing after I was just pondering on this prayer and fast, because Mount Sinai, that was where Moses received the 10 Commandments, and then he came down, and they celebrated that as Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, and then later Pentecost was fulfilled on that day. So this kind of stacking of Pentecost and Shavuot and the Feast of Weeks. And so to me, when I think about Mount Sinai, I think about like the Pentecost and the Spirit, and how it's important to keep the commandments, but even more so to follow the Spirit. And so when I found this necklace right after reading about this Pentecost challenge, and I had been thinking about going back and reviewing what the prophet had said, I went back to what the prophet said, and let me show you what he said. And then this really kind of blew me away, and I thought, okay, this is something that I need to think more about, give it more consideration. But let's see, this is hard for me to read. I don't know if you can, but it says that the part I highlighted too, one of the things that the prophet said when he came in 2018 to the Safeco Fields, he came and he said this was a historic event. And he says, come to the top of Mount Sinai. He blesses our best efforts. And then he talked about, it's important to he says that our efforts are designed to help all of mankind. And then he talked about how there's great satisfaction in partnering with people of all religions, Catholics, Muslims, friends, and neighbors, that cooperation and not segregation, and that we need to gather scattered Israel. And so that really is such a Zionistic thought. And I thought, well, maybe rather than just discounting that's what those, other Christians are doing, maybe there's some way that I can join with them and be a part of that. And and I think that God uses all of us in different ways. We all have our different journeys, and I think that um, it's important for us to find that common ground. But I thought more about that, and then as I was just reflecting, so I started thinking also about how special these times are, and how, like, that really is a historic thing to have, between 1 million committed Christians praying for Israel, possibly up to 100 million more praying this Pentecost. And I think that we're all kind of doing these things and sensing these historic times in our own way. And if you look at, let me go to another special thing that's coming up soon, is it is the 200th anniversary of Moroni, the messenger of the restoration. So when he visited Joseph Smith for the first time, it was during the Feast of Tabernacles. And so on the night of, so this is on the church website, it says, on the night of September 21st, 1823, Joseph Smith prayed to know God's further will toward him. Steadily, a light grew as though the house was filled with consuming and unquenchable fire. Moroni, a messenger sent from God, stood before him. In mortal life, Moroni had been the last of ancient American prophets having authority from God and whose teachings were recorded for our time. Moroni declared that the time was at hand for the gospel in all its fullness to be preached in power unto all nations, and that Joseph was to be an instrument in the hands of God in that work. He quoted ancient prophets who had foreseen that this time would come, and as Moroni stood before him, Joseph was shown in vision the place where the plates were deposited. So he was shown the plates for the first time, and this was his first time interacting with Moroni. And I love that description that he said the house is filled with consuming and unquenchable fire. And then he ties that to the gospel going to all the nations, to all the world. And so I started putting these pieces together and feeling like, you know what, I want to do a 21-day challenge, but I want to put a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints spin on it. And how powerful would that be if, many of us joined in on this and we did a 21-day challenge. And I know this is late. I mean, I just saw this right before this weekend, basically at the same time when the apostle came. But I don't think, it has to be, I feel like you could do this 21-day challenge at any time. And let me show you why and how this 21-day challenge was actually a concept put forth by Wendy Nelson. And somebody shared it with me right before the prophet came, and it was so powerful. And I have forever referred back to that time in my life as the 21 days of miracles, because so many miracles happen. And so let me share with you kind of just how that was shared with me, and I want to pass that along and share that with you. So let me go to that. All right, so this is in 2018, and I was, just to give a little background, this was a really hard time. My last child was a baby. He wasn't even one yet. He had terrible, horrible allergies. I was up all night, every night, just fighting for him to breathe. I had to give him breathing treatments 2 to 3 times a day. And I was seeing a specialist, a pediatric specialist for allergies, and we were helping him to essentially to get him to outgrow his allergies, or to slowly, little by little, feed him those things. So he was allergic to almost everything, dairy, gluten, um, and anyways, a bunch of things. And so what I had to do is I had to bake these cupcakes. You do a baked test first. So for instance, you start with one thing. So for milk, he was allergic to just cow's milk. So I would make these muffins and put cow's milk in it. And it was specific instructions from the doctor on what to do. And then apparently it breaks down the protein when you bake it. So I bake it and give him a little piece, and then give him just a little bit more each day. And I'd have to carefully measure it. And anyways, needless to say, I was stressed out. I was worn. I was worn so thin and I was struggling. But I was excited that the prophet was coming. And so here's an email that I sent to my sister-in-law at the time. And I said, hey, in reference to what we were saying about how it seems that everyone is going about life in this certain busy way, and I can't shake the feeling that I need to step up my spiritual game, and that if I do, that everything else will just fall into place. I've been reading the biography of Henry Eyring's life very slowly, like one page a day. I was trying. But this one part talks about how he was given inspiration from a mentor at various times in his life. He said it was usually people older than himself that gave just the advice he needed at the right time. So I was pondering on this and thinking, I need a mentor right now. I need somebody to give me advice. And the next day, I found this email from Sharon. She was the our stake release study president at the time, and we didn't really converse very much at all. So I was surprised to see that, and she sent it to me. And I said, I loved it, and I'm doing the 21-day challenge. And I thought you might enjoy the article as well. So I shared that with a few of my friends because I was so excited at how this had just come at the right time. And it sounded like this really cool challenge, and it ended up being amazing, life-changing. So let me share just a little bit. This was Wendy Nelson in 2015, and it was a BYU women's conference talk that she gave. So just a little section of that. It said, the power of God flows into them, and that power, his power, generates a decrease in stress, an increase in energy, and more and clear revelation for their lives. So courage to make needed changes, an increase in patience, and more time for what matters, Nelson said. She continued by quoting counsel from Elder D. Todd Christofferson. So as I'm reviewing this, I'm like, oh, it goes back to Elder Christofferson. Awesome, because he was just here. In times of distress, let your covenants be paramount and let your obedience be exact. Sister Nelson said, by doing this, the young mother's distress fell away. She asked the audience if they'd be willing to try the same 21-day experiment. She asked what blessings, miracles, and other positive changes would come to one's life if they did whatever it took in order to make a sacrifice of time to the Lord by increasing the time spent doing temple and family history work. Nelson said she learned from covenant women that just like keeping the covenant of sacrifice brings the power of God to one's life, the power of God also flows when one keeps their covenants of service. So, and then it talks about rather than, doing vacation or going to the spa, covenant women are far more likely to be rejuvenated through serving. And particularly this challenge was of doing temple and family history work. And so at the time I thought, oh, I'm totally going to do this. And it really ended up being such a miracle in my life. It was just so many coincidences and things happened during that time. And actually, so I started it the next day after I read it. And I didn't realize till later on in the challenge that the challenge would actually end on my son's 1-year-old birthday. And he was kind of the source of a lot of my stress at that time. And so that was kind of cool. It was just the celebration. We made it to 1 year. He's still alive. And I was also asked to give a talk on that day. And then I also realized right before that date hit that it was the birth date, the anniversary of the birth date of Mary Musselman. And so I want to share you. And it was cool to discover that because Mary Musselman Whitmer, she kind of went through a similar struggle where she was struggling with just her energy and stress and feeling like she couldn't do it. And I think as Latter-day Saint women, it's easy to feel we have a lot on our plates. We're taking care of our kids' families. Maybe we're working as well. We're also trying to live the gospel and do our callings. And it can feel like a lot. And that's why God is so ready to give us that spiritual help. And so I loved how Winnie Nelson laid out this 21-day experiment as a way to um, offer up what we can and to ask for that help from heaven. And so Mary, so she was born on August 27th, 1778. Mary Elsa Musselman Whitmer was a Book of Mormon witness and the wife of Peter Whitmer. And so that's really cool that she was a Book of Mormon witness. And just a little bit more about her, it says that so Mary, she began to feel the burdens of added household responsibilities due to her long-term guests. So she had Oliver Cowdery and Joseph Smith and all these people staying in her home all the time. And that can feel very wearing. And so Mary, she experienced a miracle that gave her the strength to continue in her hospitality and confirmed to her the Book of Mormon's authenticity. David said, "My mother was going to milk the cows when she was met out near the yard by an old man who said to her, 'You have been very faithful and diligent in your labors, but you are tired because of the increase of your toil. It is proper, therefore, that you should receive a witness that your faith may be strengthened.' Thereupon he showed her the plates." And from that moment on, she, having that spiritual experience, she had that greater excitement and the fortitude to keep going. So I thought that was also cool that the experiment ended this way. And just a little bit more to share with you. This actually was, to be honest, so amazing that I ended up writing a letter to Wendy Nelson to tell her how life changing this was and how her voice and her advice came to me right when I needed it and how it completely just turned everything around. Um, I'll read to you just a little bit of what I said to her. Um, I said, after the birth of my fifth child, life got rough and wearisome, and despite all the amazing examples around me, I still found myself struggling on a daily basis to be the best teacher that I can be for my kids. There's so many challenges for parents today. And so I got on my knees and I prayed, and I clasped my hands and just prayed for help more fervently than I ever have. And I had just felt like my zest for life and my energy was just slowly dying. Um, and that same night, I had a dream, and it was my husband and I, Dave and I, were inside a room with a huge crowd of people, and it was imperceptibly filling with smoke. And nobody realized this. And I looked around at all the people who were passing out due to a lack of oxygen, and I realized just in the nick of time what was happening. And we just barely escaped. I grabbed my husband, we ran out of the room, and we caught some fresh air. And there was the sun and the fresh air. And when I woke up, I knew that this was just kind of a beautiful little analogy of how we let the cares of the world choke out um, the spiritual, life giving things in our life. And, it was a hard time. So for me, the cares of the world were keeping my son alive. And that's essential, right? These are real. We have real worries. We have real cares in this world. But it was just a reminder to me that we can still always keep our spiritual health paramount, because if we make that first, our spiritual health will breathe that extra physical energy to us as well. And we can get heaven's help. And that's when we need it the most. So, um, so I had shared that with her, and I just told her how I had received that letter and that her words jumped off the page. That she had said also, as we keep our covenants, so Wendy Nelson said, as we keep our covenants, we can ask for angels to help us. Um, so I started the 21-day experiment the next day. I did family history work every single day, and I can testify that this experiment was a complete success. By no small coincidence, the bishopric unknowingly called me to give a talk on the closing day of the challenge. And on one day of the challenge, my girls, completely on their own, in the middle of reading the Book of Mormon, proclaimed that they were going to organize my food pantry and donate some of the near expiration items to a local food bank. It kept them busy and happy all day. And on many occasions, I had made the goal to wake up at 5:30 a.m. so that I could work on family history for at least an hour. And many of those occasions, I'm not a morning person, but I found myself waking up just 1 minute before my alarm went off and ready to get up. This was new to me. And when little challenges came my way, the answers to my prayers came fast and immediately. So, anyways, I could go on and on. There were miracles that happened every day during this. And the point was that as we are doing what the prophet asked and focusing on temple and family history, like, those miracles will happen. And so basically, that reminded me about this 21-day challenge. And I wanted to share that with all of you. If you wanted to try the 21-day challenge, when I did it before, when the prophet came, I shared it with a few friends, and they had the same experience. They had all these amazing things happen. Actually, one of my good friends told me that on the last day of doing the 21-day experiment, she got pregnant. Like, she found out she was pregnant that day. And so, so these things are real. Give it a try and let me know how it turned. I would love to hear how the 21-day experiment works out for you. And let's see, I think that is all. I just wanted to share one other thing that let me go to it. If we go to the um okay, so one of the things that I noted, this is right before the prophet came, and this is just a little piece of my journal that I've written down, that I really made this connection between doing this challenge and the scripture that they shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings as eagles, they shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. And I just really had this thought that this is a scriptural promise, and that as we that I was doing this challenge, and as we try to follow the prophet and keep the commandments, that the Lord will bless us and give us the energy that we need. So I'm going to do it again because I'm at a point right now where I could use that energy and those blessings. And so I'm going to do the challenge. And I haven't thought about this for a long time, so it was kind of cool that the Spirit brought this memory back to me, reminded me of the same thing that I had done when the prophet came. And I feel like just that Spirit. I know that our stake president, one of his comments was that just when Elder Christofferson walked into the room, that they're special apostles and witnesses to Jesus Christ, and I could feel that. So I'm so grateful for modern and latter day prophets and apostles that can help to bring that spirit. Sometimes it's not even exactly what they say, but the way the spirit comes into your life and tells you what you need to do. So I felt like I should share this today, and I hope this touches your heart. And anyways, thanks for listening.